Severance Season 2 Episode 8, I'm gonna make you love it. Let's break it down. So the first thing we see is Salt's neck, which is super important because Salt is what I theorize is what allows the Severance chips to activate multiple innies. Per Mark's body shaking during reintegration, and the Salt on the table and Gemma's brain scans and different innies. Salt reacts to sound frequencies and each room has its own frequency. Cobell brushing her teeth symbolizes her wiping her hands clean of the town. Then she looks at the man on a Dettol ether and spits. To me, that symbolizes her disgust for the town and almost states she's better than the place she came from. Also, just seeing someone taking Dettol ether in broad daylight is crazy, but it shows us how broken the place is. Then we get our first respirator, an open trade of Dettol ether, showing three things. 1, it erodes lungs. 2, it impacts eye pigment, which real world chemicals can actually do. And 3, Natalie's eyes are blue because of this, almost as if she was branded by Lumen, and the painting of Milchek would mean he too would be forced to do the same to become a child of Kir. Once Cobell is in the bar, she sarcastically mimics the man we would later know as Hampton. He doesn't reciprocate, showing distrust and a broken past, which tells us a lot about Cobell as a person. Once driving through the town, we get the Lumen signage and brickwork, which kind of tells us like Lumen ran this town into the ground and they were there for that long. Then once at the factory, it links into the backstory we've heard endlessly about Kir and Imogene meeting in the factory to start the Egan family, and it shows us that this was a labor-intense town that Lumen abandoned once its products updated. Then we learn the Egans used child labor before they used innies. What is super important is that we get even more of an understanding of why Helena is so obsessed with Mark. I think she's mentally trying to recreate the dynamic her ancestor had, and again reinforces Milchek's Glock Shubin story about the king going undercover and Helena going undercover. We can sense she feels this way because in season 2 episode 6 she even jokes about bringing Mark home to dad. Once at Cobell's yard, we can see by the age of 13 she was removed from the house, which could indicate this is the age kids are taken to Metal Egan School for Girls, which I now think is a boarding school. Then outside the room we see a plaque of Celestine Sissy Cobell, admired for being a quarterly striver and youth apprentice matron. I want to look at the meaning behind words. Celestine is defined as heavenly and Harmony is defined as pleasing combination of different parts, so it's likely they were renamed at the school or perhaps earn a name once they display certain characteristics. We later learn Harmony Cobell created the chips, and so perhaps was seen as someone who brought all 4 of Kir's tempers together, which raises questions about Miss Hong. If I butchered that, I'm sorry, correct me. Hong translates to Phoenix, and the Phoenix is known for rebirth and the rising from ashes, so could this be hinting at her potentially having passed and undergone a Lumen experiment? Could something tragic have happened to her as a crossing guard? We learn her mum stopped believing in Lumen's teachings, and more specifically the 9. So what are the 9? Back in season 1 we hear Earth talking about the core principle, showing just how far back they go. Message below if you want a video. Once Cobell gets in the room, we see the 4 tempers, which we've seen in previous paintings, but it also shows that believers of Kir take these very seriously, raising suspicion on Rickon Hell, who has many goat-shaped objects in his house. His name translates to powerful and free from defect, aka pure. Now, who is obsessed with purity? Lumen. We also get a tapestry of a man riding a goat, a newspaper saying James Egan assumes the role of CEO, and work-life balance, which probably helped to inspire innies and outies, and the cards with the 9. Then when taking Dettol ether, Cobell says she hasn't done this since she was 8, which shows us how far back Lumen were indoctrinating her or how long her mother had been addicted. In the cave, we see she was potentially in the hockey team, valedictorian, and named the Wintertide Fellow, the same achievement Miss Hong is striving for. When we see Cobell's Severance chip blueprints, we get sound waves, proving that's how the chips are controlled. I think one wave is for the innie and another for the outie. Then if we look at the bottom right, we can see she even studied what would happen if both waves aligned, which is what we saw Ragabi do to Mark, which caused reintegration. Now, my thoughts are they haven't perfected reintegration without it causing insanity or the PE tree. We get more drawings which show where the chip is inserted, and it seems to indicate and line up with the belief of a third eye, and ultimately learned she was brainwashed to keeping this a secret. This could show why people began hating Harmony. Because of this discovery, Lumen would wind up leaving the town. The thing I noticed is Harmony was a teenager when she made this, which lines up with James saying they developed the first prototype, which makes me put this 20 to 30 years in the past, lining up with Bert talking about working for Lumen those 20 years back, and with the amount of rooms we saw around Gemma, could infer testing has been going on for a very long time as they perfected the chip. This episode wasn't filler, it answered too many questions, and it actually tied off a lot of loose ends. One other thing is when Cobell is crying, we see tides crashing. The place is called Salt's Lake. Could Cold Harbor be the recreation of Kir and Imogene meeting in the factory? If you like this video, please subscribe, please share, and if you want to help me out, feel free to donate a coffee.